Are you ready for the summer?
Hey, you! On the water skates!
Ivan Reitman started his career in entertainment as a producer for a Canadian TV station, City TV. In the 1960s and early 70s, he went on to produce mostly low-budget horror films like Cannibal Girls, as well as two from David Cronenberg. In 1978, he produced Animal House, which he really wanted to direct, but the job ended up going to John Landis. While Animal House was in post, he knew he had to direct a film and do it fast. He contacted his friend Dan Goldberg in early spring of 1978. He told him he felt it was time that he directed a film and wanted Goldberg to write it. The two thought about what they could do quick and cheap and agreed on a movie about summer camp. Growing up in Canada, they had both gone to summer camp as kids, and at the time there weren't any summer camp movies that they knew of. Reitman was being very ambitious. It was now April and he wanted to start filming before Animal House hit theaters in July. While Goldberg worked on writing the script, Reitman went about casting. Goldberg had plenty of friends who went to summer camp, so he asked them to tell him their experiences, as well as any funny stories. He wrote the first draft in about a month, and it wasn't very good. He cobbled together a script that was about the CITs, counselors in trainings at a summer camp. It revolved around them, their relationships, and so on. Goldberg continued to write and had a better draft after about 2 months. Reitman worked with a bunch of comedians in an off-Broadway National Lampoon show, some of which were John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Harold Ramis, Joe Flaherty, Brian Doyle Murray, and Bill Murray. This was the early 1970s, pre-Saturday Night Live. Reitman knew he wanted Murray in the film, but he turned him down. They were planning on filming during the summer, and Murray wanted to spend the months playing baseball before he returned to Saturday Night Live. Even though Murray refused to be in the film, Reitman was confident he could get him on board. He called his friend Harold Ramis and got him to punch up the script, but he still wasn't interested. Reitman managed to secure a location, a real summer camp, Camp White Pine in Ontario, Canada. They were going to film through July and August while the real camp that year was going on. They had the script, the location, and the rest of the cast, but still couldn't get Murray. It was getting close to filming, and Reitman knew the whole thing hinged on getting Murray to join. He was the only choice for the role. Finally, the first day of filming happened, and they didn't have their star. That night, though, they got a glimmer of hope. Bill Murray's lawyer called them to inform them that he was considering being in the movie. Day 2 was filled with nervous energy. That night, they got a call, and Murray agreed to do the picture. Day 3 showed up, and they filmed his first scene in the clothes he was wearing when he arrived. It was a major relief, because if he didn't show, production would have had to stop. They had no backup plan. With Murray now joining the cast, filming went into full swing. Reitman financed the film out of his own pocket. The movie's budget was low, well under $1 million. They couldn't afford sets, so they just used the real locations within the campground. They shot some scenes with the kids of the camp as extras, and even shot the visitation scene with real families. Initially, the camp was happy to have them, but after a week of filming, they tried to have them removed. This wasn't Hollywood, this was a small-budget Canadian film, and they thought they could boot them out. The director reminded them they had a contract, so filming continued. The kids at the camp tried to sabotage the production. They did things like trying to deflate the tires on the dolly, and other things they wouldn't talk about. This was Chris Makepeace's first film, as well as Matt Craven. Although at the time he was going as Matt Craven with 2 N's. Spaz was played by Jack Blum, who was one of the casting agents. This guy was the real camp director. The campfire scene was taking too long to light, and during that time, Murray got really drunk. So drunk, in fact, that he had a hard time delivering his campfire story. When August came, camp was over, so the crew had the entire camp to themselves for the remainder of the shoot. The famous scene when Bill Murray claims,
It just doesn't matter if we win or we lose! It just doesn't matter! It just doesn't matter!
Was mostly improv on the spot. Reitman was at a coffee shop with Murray and said the movie needed a scene to rally the troops. Something like the speech from Animal House when Bluto talks about when the Nazis bombed Pearl Harbor. Reitman told Murray to throw some ideas at him, and at some point, he said it just doesn't matter. This clicked, and he said, "That's good! Now just repeat that!" When they shot the scene, the cast didn't know what he was going to do, and were told to just go with it. The lesson was to try as hard as you can, and that's all that matters, which ended up being one of the most memorable and quoted parts from the movie. Filming ran for about 30 days. They worked on editing the film and tried to focus the story. The first cut of the film ran 2 hours long. It revolved mostly around the CITs, their friendships, fights, and romances. Reitman was happy with it and wanted to bring it to Hollywood. Animal House was now released, and since it was the 3rd highest grossing film of the year, he was confident the studio would want summer camp. He screened the film for Universal, and they weren't interested. Reitman watched the film with the executives, and seeing it in this light, he realized the film wasn't complete. Amidst the scenes with the CITs was the relationship between Tripper and Rudy. Only there wasn't enough story there, they only had a few scenes together. Reitman wanted to shoot additional scenes with the two to make the storyline the backbone of the film. Since they couldn't go back to the campground, they built a cabin set to shoot some additional scenes with Tripper and Rudy. They also shot a new opening, with Tripper making the campground announcements. The scene where Tripper finds Rudy trying to leave was shot in a diner. They put up Greyhound signs to make it look like a bus terminal. They filmed the new scenes over the course of 3 days for about $20,000. Reitman worked with Goldberg, and they cut about an hour out of the film. The film was a mess, and Reitman worked to fix as much as he could in post. When they were on site, Reitman told the cameramen to film some additional material if there was nothing else going on. Sunrises, sunsets, and anything, he said, that looked beautiful. This ended up saving the film because they were able to use it to add in structure. They wrote some dialogue and had Murray record voiceovers they used with the footage. This took the jumbled mess of the film and gave it a proper narrative.
Attention, bus for the Camp Mohawk basketball game leaving in 15 minutes, and there is a very fat pair of pants hanging on the flagpole this morning.
It also added more humor to the film. They needed a score, but were almost out of money. Reitman called in a favor to John Landis, who knew composer Elmer Bernstein. Bernstein was an Oscar-winning composer who had done everything from The Ten Commandments to The Magnificent Seven to The Great Escape. Reitman spoke to him and said, "We're a little Canadian film with no money. Please help." Bernstein watched the current version and fell in love with it, so he agreed to do the score, as long as he got a piece of the profits on the back end. The name of the film was Summer Camp, but somewhere along the line they changed it to Meatballs, and no one can recall why. Possibly because there was another film in production around that same time also called Summer Camp. They took the film to LA and had a screening for multiple studios. They also had a full audience in attendance. The screening was an overwhelming success. The crowd loved it. After they returned to Canada, they were in negotiations with Fox. Negotiations were going slowly, and Reitman was getting frustrated. During this time, they kept getting calls from Paramount, but didn't call them back because they were sure they were going to get a deal with Fox. Finally, one day, their attorney came in and told them Fox was about to call to offer them $3 million for worldwide distribution. They were overjoyed, as this would have been more than triple what they had spent. The attorney called the contact at Fox, who put them on speakerphone. He said, "So, you're going to offer us $3 million? The executive laughed and told him that when he said that, he was only kidding. The mood in the room dropped. Frustrated, they took the film to New York and screened it with a crowd at Paramount, which also went well. Paramount immediately offered them $3 million to distribute to the US and Canada. This was an even better deal because now they could make more money from an additional studio who would distribute to the rest of the world. Since they were now at Paramount, they had access to their music library. They had Bernstein write the Meatballs theme song and had famous radio DJ Rick Dees perform it. It was now the summer of 1979. Paramount had multiple films set to release, like Escape from Alcatraz and Star Trek the Motion Picture. Meatballs they thought was a good movie, but they didn't expect much from it. They bought the rights mostly because they didn't want another studio to get it. The movie went on to surprise them all, making over $43 million in the US and being one of the most profitable films of the year. The film was huge for Ivan Reitman's career. After this, he directed numerous huge films with Murray, like Stripes and Ghostbusters. With monster hits like Twins and Kindergarten Cop, he became one of the biggest directors of the 80s and 90s. Meatballs was a very personal film for Reitman. While it was rushed into, they were able to take the time to fix it. He also learned a lot from Bill Murray. During the film, he had a short temper and would often go off on people. He thought he was being assertive, but really was being a jerk. Murray told him he needed to relax and that the crew would work better if he wasn't yelling all the time. Over the course of the film, Reitman learned how to direct, and because of this, went on to make some of the best, most enduring comedies of all time. Meatballs should have been a disaster. From the half-baked script to the numerous mistakes from the director, it succeeded almost in spite of itself. The movie went on to have a series of bizarre sequels that were more in line with crude teen comedies than with the original film. Meatballs 2 was about an alien named Meathead, left at the camp as an attempt to cash in on the success of E.T. Meatballs 3 Summer Job had Patrick Dempsey as a grown-up Rudy, returning to the camp and meeting the spirit of a dead porn star, who helps him in his quest to lose his virginity to Shannon Tweed. Meatballs 4 went full teen sex comedy with tons of nudity and numerous scenes of Corey Feldman dancing like Michael Jackson. Meatballs is one of the best films of its kind. It manages to be crude without being obnoxious, silly without being stupid, and heartwarming without being pandering. The relationships between the CITs isn't forced, and totally feels like those summer romances kids would have at camp. Tripper makes a great mentor for Rudy, and teaches him the value of believing in yourself. This movie means a lot to me because when I was young, I saw it and immediately identified with Rudy. I was the shy, quiet kid who never believed in himself. As silly as this may seem, this movie taught me to have confidence, and my early attempts at humor stemmed from me mimicking Bill Murray. It's entirely possible that if not for this silly, ill-conceived movie, I might be a different person. Due to the crass sequels being played repeatedly on 90s cable, most people don't know the humble beginnings of the original film, which is nothing at all like the follow-ups. It's a genuine heartwarming film that captures what it's like to go to summer camp, which is something most kids today will never experience.
Attention, here's an update on tonight's dinner. It was veal. I repeat, veal. The winner of tonight's mystery meat contest is Jeffrey Corbin, who guessed some kind of beef.